Hello, my name is Dr. Scott Young, and today we're going to do a whole bunch of series of little videos all about NESARA. Coming right up. Okay, so when you think about NESARA, you probably maybe have heard about it or you have no idea what it is. And you're saying, I don't have a clue. What are you talking about? And I want to kind of just hit several little points. We're going to try to make them, 5 to 10 minutes long so it's not, overwhelming for you with that too. So I say this to you, we're sitting in February of 2021 and people ask this question, what was last year about, especially believers? And I'm going to say this to you in a really strange way, but it was all about money. I mean, there's so many crazy things like with the COVID silliness and riots and, political spectrum, stupidness and the Capitol supposed riots with Antifa and all these dumb things that are going on around us. They're very frustrating, and closings of businesses and closing of time frame and mask mandates and everything else. And basically what the point was is the money reset. Now, we're going to talk about Great Reset, but do not think that's part of this, okay? We are not in a Great Reset. That's what the cabal wishes for you. The reality that we're talking about is NESARA. Now, you're going to say, but where is the information for it? And I'm going to say to you, it's been there all along, but you just haven't realized it. You see, we've been coming up to the edge of a cliff for so long, it's not funny. I mean, for a very long time, maybe 20, 30 years or more, we've been coming up to this debt cliff. Now, if you've ever been close to bankruptcy, and by the way, I was in 2009, and that went on for, for a very long time frame. What happens to you is that you hope to just push it off for another day. So you can pay your bills this month, but then you go, well, hope I can get through this month, and then we'll see about next month. And then I got through this month, what about next month? And I've asked the Lord this one many times until finally God actually in 2011, I think it was, he was like, shut up. I don't want to hear bankruptcy ever again. Longer story than that. But basically what he was saying to me is, I don't want you to talk about it. He didn't say that it wasn't going to have bankruptcy. He didn't say that I was going to have bankruptcy. He just didn't want to hear it anymore. And yet that's actually where Americans have been. They didn't want to hear the conversations anymore. So I want to share with you now, we actually had one of the most amazing presidents, and he's going to come back, don't worry about it. But we have one of the most amazing presidents in Donald Trump. And you got to ask yourself, why was he in charge in a time frame when we probably needed a military leader? And the answer is, he's an economist. Did you catch that? He's an economist. That's what we needed today. We didn't need to have a military leader. We could have had a General Flynn. We could have had a ton of other guys or women that could have run the military. Gotten in just like General Eisenhower in 52 to 60. Okay, we could have had that. But what we got as an economist, and that was the right thing because there was an economic problem. And we needed someone brilliant to figure this stuff out. Now, we're going to talk briefly a little bit about the Federal Reserve first off, because that's your focus. See, everything else is distraction. But the focus of what we're talking about here is the Federal Reserve. That's what this all was about. The Federal Reserve is sitting at $28 trillion, depending upon what Congress might shove in another $1.9 trillion. I mean, that could push us close to $30 trillion in debt. What you have to realize is that on average, if you're at the point of bankruptcy courts look at you and say, if you're a personal or a business, a small business, okay? If you're 30 to 50% debt to income ratio. Now, we're not talking about like mortgages and stuff like that. We're really talking very specifically about rotating kinds of mortgages, rotating kinds of issues. So for instance, credit cards and cars and other types of loans that is swamping you with that. Okay? Now, obviously, mortgage is a part of that, but that's what foreclosure is trying to deal with mostly. But in this case, when you get to this place of 30 to 50%, you're really struggling to even make it. America is 150 to 170% debt to income ratio, which means that the income that comes from the IRS, what you have to understand is the IRS, we pay our payroll taxes to the IRS, state and federal. It goes directly to the IRS that picks up an amount, and they take their cut, and it goes to the Treasury. Then it takes their small cut, and then it shunts all the way to the Federal Reserve. And the Federal Reserve is taking that and paying toward debt issues. Sorry about the cough. And they're paying toward the national or the federal debt. And you say, did I make that debt? See, they're saying to you, you created that debt. And I'm saying to you, no, you did not create that debt. That was the central bankers. And you go, wait a second, it says Federal Reserve. Yeah, they did that on purpose in 1913. They pushed it through. The Aldrich Act was canceled in about 1911, and in that time frame. Then they actually put two candidates forward, in Teddy Roosevelt or Woodrow Wilson in 1912. And they didn't care who got in. They kind of wanted Woodrow, but they didn't care. So they backed both of them so that the Aldrich Act was changed into the Federal Reserve. So December 23rd of 1913, the Federal Reserve came into effect. And so they were going to make the cash. So the money flows from the IRS, from you to the IRS to the Treasury, and then over to the Federal Reserve. And the Federal Reserve are private bankers. We're talking about Rothschilds. We're talking about all of the gross bankers, okay? The big banks, and there are 13 major, cabal families. And it's all of the big wig people that you're thinking of, okay? The Soroses and, all these different people. And Bill Gates is a part of it as well, okay? So all the companies, all these banks that try to, cover our circumstance are all a part of this. And that's the key. We were coming to an edge. We can't even barely pay the interest payment. And that's the key for 2020, why everything had to come up. So there were two proffered ideas. See, the cabal wanted to have the Great Reset. But Donald Trump, over years and years and years, see, this has been even before his time in the federal government, he was seeing something called NESARA, and that's what we're going to talk a little bit more about as we go farther. So if you like this, subscribe, leave comments, questions. Happy to answer them. Thank you so much.